Okay, next presenter is going to be Ken Hampton with Tennessee DOT, coming over for emergency.
Good morning. I do want to thank the committee for giving me a few moments to talk about Tennessee's emergency response. Before I get into that, though, just give you a little brief overview of what Tennessee looks like. TDOT size and organization. We have 4 regions, 12 districts, 95 counties. We have approximately 4,500 employees and 6,800 fleet units. That's mobile fleet units, anything with a green tag. Our state is kind of short state, but it's long, 538 miles from the northeast corner in Mountain City to the southwest corner in Memphis. So we have a great variety of topography. So up in the East Tennessee, we'll get 20 to 25 snow events a year. West Tennessee may get 2, 3, and none of them will last more than 24 hours. So West Tennessee is really flat, really hot. We are a centralized organization. However, each region is led by a deputy commissioner. So they do have some leeway in making some decisions. Sometimes that creates some problems at headquarters, but we work through those. Typically, we don't have problems, but when we talking about emergency response, we did run into some issues that we had to deal with where people weren't always on the same page. Really, we began an in-depth evaluation of our emergency response program, and it was prompted by Hurricane Katrina making landfall in 2005. We actually had received, our governor had received a request from the Louisiana governor to send some assistance and clean up. Tennessee being the volunteer state, we were happy to do that. We had a lot of volunteers, jumped at the opportunity. We began preparing equipment to go. And then FEMA reached out to us and asked the question, are you prepared to be self-sufficient when you go? And really the answer was no, we weren't. We really had not given thought to things like how we're going to fuel our equipment, how we're going to deal with repairs if equipment breaks down. We had thought a little bit about food, but we were basically going to make our guys eat sandwiches and try to take some water for them. And it really wasn't a good plan. We didn't know how we were going to sleep them. So there were a lot of issues that we really had never considered. We just assumed maybe there would be some support there for us. And FEMA said, no, you're going to become part of the problem if you come like that. When we were turned down and told to stand down, our governor turned to our commissioner at the time and said, you need to develop a plan where we will be ready to go and assist anyone who needs it, whether it's in state or out of state. So we started that process. In early 2006, we developed a working group, which I was a part of, and it was to evaluate emergency preparedness. And really, we looked at these 4 items. We need skilled, knowledgeable workers. I told you when we had that opportunity to go to respond to helping Katrina clean up, we had a lot of people come out of the woodwork who wanted to go, but a lot of them would not have been good choices to send. They were not really good equipment operators. There had been more problems than they would have been help. So we needed to identify who our skilled, knowledgeable workers were. We needed to make sure they had the proper equipment to work with, that we could deploy quickly, and we could be self-sufficient while we were deployed. So we began working on that plan. First thing we looked at was personnel. I just mentioned we had a lot of volunteers, so we wanted to identify what the right size of a team should be. We started with like 25-man teams, decided that was too bulky. We actually got down to 9-man teams. Each region, we have 4 regions in the state, each region was to identify 3 9-man teams, and those 9-man teams would be made up of a working supervisor, 1 mechanic, and then 7 really highly skilled equipment operators. One of the things, for you guys in the Southeast especially, one of the things we found interesting was the same people we were selecting for this were rodeo participants. So those were people who were already highly skilled in equipment and liked the camaraderie and liked the competition, and they were quick to volunteer for this program. Felt like personnel was in hand. Then we moved to our mission-specific equipment. You guys know, of course, I'm talking about dump trucks, excavators, great alls, loaders. Depending on what the emergency was, what we were responding to would depend on what kind of equipment we would take. For instance, we actually have done an in-state emergency response where we activated a couple of these teams, and it was for a large ice storm up on the plateau in Middle Tennessee. So there we made sure we took our dump trucks with belly plows because we had a lot of ice pack we had to get off the road. We took motor graders to help get that ice pack off the road. Then we took our grade-offs because we had a lot of trees down. And all we were trying to do is open roads, so we were just moving debris off the road. We'll come back and handle the cleanup later. So we needed to identify that mission-specific equipment. In both of these categories, we really had everything we needed in-house already. It was just a matter of being better organized and knowing who the people were and what the right equipment was. Then we looked at the self-sufficiency part of this program. We needed a way to sleep these guys. We needed generators, mobile fuel tanks, things we take for granted, like is there a place for these guys, if they've been working 12 hours, 14 hours, do they have a place to take a hot shower? Cooking equipment, and then fresh water, gray water, storage. So we didn't have any of that. So we were starting from scratch there. So we spent the next really 2.5 years developing plans. And this was really the birth of strike force in Tennessee. The idea behind these was these strike forces, we'd be able to deploy them anywhere we needed to, whether it was in-state, a neighboring state, and they could take care of themselves and perform the work that needed to be performed. In July of 2009, we actually began procurement process. It took us, that seemed like a big lag, but because of budgeting requirements, we budgeted a couple of years out. It took us 2 years to get a budget in place where we could start buying some of this equipment. We did not want this to come out of our mobile equipment budget. All of you guys know how tight mobile equipment budgets are. You know, we saw Angel's presentation a while ago. Most states I know of are always behind the 8 ball on replacing equipment, so we didn't want to touch that budget. As we began this process to start purchasing these items for self-sufficiency, we looked at housing, electric power, fuels, and then supplies, a bunch of random self-sufficiency supplies and then work supplies that we needed to make sure we're ready to go. So the first thing we looked at was housing. How are we going to house a team when they're deployed in the field? We started off literally talking about everything. We're going to give everybody a tent and a sleeping bag. And then we talked that through and said, that's not really a good idea. We're going to ask a guy to work 14 hours and then come and make him lay down on the ground or maybe an air mattress. So we quickly got down to 2 options that you see here on your screen. And one, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but it's the Zumro air inflatable shelter. We were looking at 21 by 20 shelters. You can attach them to each other. We like these. They're easy to deploy. Takes about 15 minutes for them to inflate. And we also looked at these 12 by 56 mobile office trailers. The bottom line was we chose the office trailer for 2 reasons. First of all, the first reason was much like if anybody here a camper, anybody got a camper? What do you like about your camper? You can pack everything in it and leave it there, right? So our bunks are already set up. We have things already in the kitchen, stored supplies that we'll need for cooking, those kinds of things. So it was just an easier process when we actually did deploy. All that stuff was ready to go. We just hook up the trailer and we take off. That was really the main reason. The other, on the negative side of the inflatable was that we'd have to get it there, set up cots, those kinds of things. And we ultimately decided we just didn't want to have to do that. The cost was actually fairly close to the same. We bought these trailers for $19,500 a piece. We bought 3 per region, fairly significant investment. Then each region, when we bought the trailers, they were just a shell on the inside, that they had paneling walls, but nothing else inside. So each region was tasked with a build out on the inside. Each region was to have a kitchen. We built the kitchens on the tongue end. And this is a very typical kitchen. There's very little difference from one trailer to the next. They all have refrigerator, microwave stove, just like a regular kitchen. We do have a little chest freezer you're not seeing in this picture. All of those turned out about the same. The center section was going to actually be the bunk area. I've got 2 that I'm showing you here. The one on the left is open to the kitchen, but these guys built their own bunks and they've got a full-size, I shouldn't say full-size, a pillow-top twin mattress. I actually checked these out. I didn't sleep on one, but they're pretty comfortable, and we've got some guys, they work hard, they want a good place to sleep. The downside of this design is when the guys, if you had a couple of the team members assigned to do kitchen duty in the morning, they go into the kitchen, they turn the lights on to the whole trailer, and these guys who are trying to get that extra 30 minutes of sleep are hearing all this and have the lights on. The design on the right, you can see they've inserted a wall between the kitchen and the sleeping area with a door. They actually did a rewire so that they can turn on the lights in the kitchen and not disturb people who are getting that extra little bit of sleep. The downside is, if you will notice, those metal bunks, we have headquarters people have slept in these. We call these prison bunks. They're 27 inches wide. Had a 6-inch foam mattress. These are horrible sleeping beds. If you ever decide to do any of this, don't use these little beds. They're not good. At the back of the trailer, we have 2 fully functional bathrooms. We have walk-in showers with a little sink vanity, and in lieu of a regular toilet, we're using an Incentilet electric toilet. Anybody familiar with an Incentilet electric toilet? Anybody used one? John, it's a great experience, right? They're really easy to use. First, let me tell you, they come in 120 and 240 options. The ones we have purchased are simple plug and go. They do need to be on a 20 amp dedicated circuit. Easy to use. You see in the corner there, I've got a little box. You have to buy these liners to put in the bowl. It's all stainless steel. You put a liner in the bowl, you use the restroom, and then down here in this corner is a foot pedal, and that opens, the bottom of the bowl is actually 2 stainless steel doors, and they open up, the waste drops into the incineration chamber, and then on the very back of the toilet, right in here, is just a red button, start button. You push it, and the incineration process starts. It takes about an hour, and it's an on-off cycle. 2 big things here. You need to make sure everything falls below the doors, so when the doors close, you don't have any of that liner sticking up. I made the mistake, had about 2 inches of liner sticking up out of that. That incineration chamber, when it kicks on, I had flames about 2 foot high. I really thought I might set the trailer on fire. I only did that one time. The other thing is, these do have to be vented. You need to make sure you get the vent as high as you can. So on our trailer, we need to make sure it's above the roof line. Because when you go to Strike Force in Tennessee, we have exercises every year, and they talk about the sweet smell of Incentilet. It is a very unique smell, a very disgusting smell. That's the only downside of these. We completely do away with black water. The only other thing you have to do is occasionally you have to empty the ash pan at the bottom. They tell you fairly frequently. We do exercises where we're gone 3 days, and we don't have to empty them in a 3-day period. So it's probably, it just depends. You just need to check them. But it's been very effective for us. We've had these since 2010 and have had 0 problems. They work well. We've not had to replace any parts. The only thing you have to do is make sure you keep your bowl liners in stock. For our water, we actually, each Strike Force team has 2 of these 20-foot connexes, and in one of those connexes, we keep 2,000-gallon tanks. One is for fresh water, one is for gray water. So we've got 2 pumps. We pull this trailer in beside the housing units, and we hook up to the housing unit. We have some very skilled guys. We have very little problems with our water system, and then we take the gray water back with us till we can find a disposal site. One thing I did not mention, all of our water is, we have propane-powered, on-demand hot water. So no water tanks to worry about. We started with water tanks, turned out it wasn't a good idea. So each region, for electric, each region has 3 of these Wacker G85 portable diesel generators. They are more than capable of handling all of our electrical needs while we're deployed. To enhance the use of these, though, we went out to every county shop in the state, and we put in one of these Eaton Cutler Hammer Quick Connect double those safety switches so that we could use these generators to power a county office if they were to ever lose power and we needed a base station. Prior to this, the only facilities we had with backup generators would have been our regional and our district offices. So this gives us actually a place to go to at the county level if we need to. Each region, for our fuel, each region has one of these 1,000-gallon trailer-mounted fuel tanks that you see on the left. We have two 3,000-gallon skid-mounted tanks on the right. We haul those on 20-ton tag trailers. So each unit has the ability to carry 7,000 gallons of diesel. These are single-wall tanks. Currently, we're going through a discussion with our environmental office. They want us to have secondary containment. So we have looked at replacing these tanks with double-wall tanks. We can do that for about $32,000 a tank. So you're only looking at about $400,000. A second option is we are looking at a rapid rise spill containment berm that we can actually just drive the trucks on while we're fueling. That's much cheaper. They're about $3,500 a piece. Our concern is that our guys may get a little lazy and not actually deploy the berm and use it. We're also concerned about having to haul something extra. Will it get torn up while they're storing it? So we haven't made any decisions about this, but we do have to make one in the near future. Right now, the question may be, can we afford the double wall tanks? Then we developed two lists of supplies. We needed self-sufficiency supplies, which I'm not going to read all this to you, but it includes stuff like kitchenware, toilet paper, those kinds of things. We have extra sleeping bags here. We do carry extra cots, even though we all have bunks in the bunkhouse. And I think I failed to mention, our bunkhouses are designed to sleep 12, even though we only have a 9-man strike force team. That gives us some flexibility. And then we have the working supplies that we needed to make sure we're in with the strike force team. These included things like shovels, axes, chainsaws, all of our safety gear from vest, hard hats, eye protection, ear protection. You'll notice we stay on the list there. Shovels and axes, and it says ready to use. The first couple of times we did an exercise, we had regions that had axe handles and axe heads, but they weren't together. So I don't even know why you bought them that way. There are some items that are exchanged every year. We take them out and we replace them. All the items on the work supply list are currently in our stock rooms in our regional garages. So we have some items that we just swap out every year, whether we've used them or not. Items such as first aid kits, batteries, insect repellent. If it's something that we feel like has a shelf life, we're going to swap it out, put that back into the regional stock room, and they can issue it out and make sure it gets used before it goes bad. Our chainsaws, we keep several chainsaws in stock in the strike force team. Evaluate those yearly. We will not let a chainsaw sit in the strike force pod for more than 2 years. Then we'll swap it, assign it somewhere else, and put a new one in. We just want to make sure when they get there, the equipment they got is going to be functional. All of this stuff is stored in the second pod, the second Connex that I mentioned earlier. These Connexes are inventoried minimum twice a year. We inventory them right before we go on an exercise or a deployment, and we always do an inventory in the spring of the year. And that's really to catch the stuff that we need to replace that might have a shelf life on it. We just want to make sure that these are ready to go. These are kept at the regional garage. The regional garage manager has the keys. Nobody else can get into them, so we feel like they're good and secure. There's also a clipboard. You don't see it in the picture here on the right, but there's a clipboard in each of these. So if anything is issued out, whether it's in a drill or an actual event, we have a gentleman who's in charge of this, and he will have to write down the name of who got it, what they got, so we know where everything goes. It's still inventory, so we still have to be responsible for it. And then the mission-specific equipment, I mentioned before, we use our maintenance management system to identify equipment that we have tracked as being strike force ready. We try to have our newer equipment. One of the things we really emphasize, we want to make sure that these lists are updated every year. Unfortunately, sometimes we have incidents where a machine will have be in an accident, so it's not available anymore for strike force. So we've got to make sure that these lists are updated every year. They're supposed to be doing that in the spring of the year. Sometimes we have, the regions do that. We have to ride them a little bit. And then the other really important thing is standardization. So when we go on an event where we're deployed, if we're taking rubber tire loaders, we want to make sure everybody takes the same brand and model. We do that for two reasons. We're also taking replacement parts with us and we don't want to have multiple types of parts. Each region has their own pod, but if I'm taking the same loader that my neighbor is, if I have a part that malfunctions on me, I have to replace, we've still got at least two other backups, right? If a couple of teams are there. So standardization is really important. Then beginning in 2011, we started having strike force drills. We had 5 objectives. The first was just plan the logistics and be prepared to deploy a 9-man team within 48 hours. We are transportation. We should be able to do this, right? It's transporting people and equipment. What we found out was we were not good at it. I'll go into some of those problems later. But in that process, we just have to finalize our 9-man team, and we have to select and inspect the equipment. All the equipment that we've identified immediately goes to the garage so the mechanics can do a thorough inspection, fix anything that needs to be fixed. And then we have to secure fuel, food, and water, and we're trying to do all this within a 48-hour period. So we currently have a contract with Fuelman. Mansfield is our fuel deliverer, and we have a really good relationship with those guys. We talk to them on the front end about this concept of strike force and getting quick deliveries. We've been doing this since 2011, and we never have any issues getting. The first year I think we just did a 1,000-gallon tank. But we don't have any problems getting 7,000 gallons delivered to each of our 4 regions. Usually it happens within 24 hours of the time we call them. Each region also has made preparations with local grocery stores to make sure we have the ability to go in at a moment's notice and get food. And then, of course, we inspect our water tanks and start filling our 1,000-gallon fresh water tank. And then the deployment itself, deploy to the site, move as a convoy, remain self-sustaining. One of the big things we had to hammer in our guys' heads was, guys, you can't stop to get your Mountain Dew and your chewing tobacco. You have to do that before you come. We're not stopping at any retail establishments. Just getting that in their head that this is really a rehearsal for an event where you wouldn't have that opportunity. So then when we get there, it's sustaining our forces while we're there, setting up the camp. We hook up the electricity, the water, the sanitation, make sure everything works. We do a tabletop exercise for the first 3 years. We would just provide scenarios for each team. Each region would send a team to the location, and we do a tabletop exercise. So, for instance, the first year we did this in Memphis area, just north of Memphis, and we did an earthquake scenario. So one of the scenarios for a team was, okay, this is an area that we have assigned to you. You need to go in here and figure out how to prep and prepare and build a helicopter pad so we can fly supplies in and out. So they had to come up with a plan. We gave them a general area. I think in this particular case they found a prison and they used part of that facility. Then the last task was to be able to demobilize, break down the camp, convoy back to our home station, all the while remaining self-sustaining, self-sufficient. These first 3 drills, tabletop drills, were 3-day events. And then in 2014, we transitioned to a full functional drill. So each region would take turns hosting a drill, and they would come up with a scenario. All of these are natural disaster scenarios. We did a flash flood in 2014. We did infrastructure repair in 2015 based on some slide issues. We did a forest fire scenario in 2016. Interesting thing about this one, we did that in October, and we actually had a guy from the forestry department come in and work with our guys and talk to us about creating fire breaks using the road and clearing trees back off of the state routes a little further to create that fire break. And in the end of November that same year, we had the forest fires in Gatlinburg. and we deployed a strike force team to that. They had two functions. They were to escort firefighters and their equipment to make sure the roads were clear so they could get in and fight fires. In one instance, we actually had a burning tree fall on the road. Of course, it's November, so we've got our snow plows on. So our truck driver, who was driving a tandem axle dump, used his plow to push this burning tree off the road. The tree got removed. The plow did not fare so well. We also used our 1,000-gallon fuel tank to fuel fire trucks. Instead of a fire truck having to leave where he was fighting out in the national park, coming all the way to a safe area in town to fuel, we could meet him much closer to the fire, fuel safely, and get him back in the fight. So that turned out to be a real success. Then in 2017, we did not conduct a drill. We thought we were going to have an opportunity to assist either Texas or Florida in hurricane cleanup. We actually got our equipment ready. We had men on standby, and we never received any requests, and that was, we just called that our exercise for that year. Then in 2018, we did a catastrophic flood scenario, 2019, an infrastructure, and then in 2020, we actually had an opportunity to send people to Louisiana in response to Hurricane Katrina cleanup, or Hurricane Laura cleanup, excuse me. We sent 4 9-man teams and 5 additional support staff from headquarters. We sent a safety officer and we really sent a couple of guys from our office. I did not go on that trip, but they were there to really monitor what went on and how well these teams worked. So each team was paired up with a TDOT or a LDOT liaison, and we worked with utility crews. Utility crews would go in ahead of us, make sure power lines that were down were dead, and then we'd go and clear roads. It was a 5-day work deployment. We were gone for 7, but we actually worked for 5 days. And then they said they were done with, send us home, but it turned out to be a great success. A good test to see if we really could do what we wanted to do, and we performed well. At the end of every exercise or at the end of every even event, we actually have responded 2 times in state. I mentioned one earlier. I mentioned the Gatlinburg fires. I think I actually mentioned the other where we had an ice storm on the plateau in Middle Tennessee, so we deployed some teams there to help clean debris, much like what you saw in that picture for Louisiana. There were a lot of trees down, a lot of power lines, and we were just clearing roads. After each event, we actually have a meeting and to gather observations and recommendations. We would have typically about three pages of comments that we'd have to review. I'm just giving you some idea of some of the things we talked about. After the very first event, we said, hey, the host region needs to provide a liaison because you're telling me to go somewhere I've never been. So it's important to have people on the ground who know the area to partner with these teams. We did not have enough handheld radios. We discovered that in 2014, our first working exercise. All of our trucks have handheld radio. All of our trucks have radios, but we wanted handheld radios in some of our equipment. Great oil operators didn't have radios. Excavators didn't have radios. We wanted those guys to have radios so we could communicate. And remember, when we're doing exercises, it's not like a real natural disaster. The motoring public is still working around you. So in our exercises, we actually used local maintenance people for traffic control. Obviously, you won't have that luxury, or won't even need it actually in a real event. We identified that we needed an area at our base camp to do equipment repairs. We had never thought about that. I won't go through all of these. Let's jump down to the high lift tailgate. This was a big one for us. Our dump trucks at that point did not have high lift tailgates. I think we went to high lift tailgates in about 16 or 17. We were at our first exercise on Montego Mountain, just outside north of Chattanooga, and we were moving large stone from Montego Mountain over to a state route near Tracy City. Now that means anything. It's about 30 miles from where we're getting the stone, and we had an excavator there placing these large stones because we had some erosion on that mountain we were trying to control. And hopefully you can see this. You see this? This is a quad axle laying on its side. So what happened was he was dumping his load there for the excavator to start placing stone. And when that one rock came down, it was too big to go under the hinge. And it jammed right there in the tailgate, and it was long. And then it shifted to the passenger side, and the whole truck went over. Now, I don't know if you can see it. The driver's actually getting out of the truck. He just had some bruising, but that was a major scare. It was a major issue. We were able to get the truck uprighted and had to haul it back, obviously. But we decided at that point we had to come up with a solution so that we didn't run into that problem again. We worked with Viking Surveys, and they helped us come up with a design for a high-lift tailgate, which has worked well for us. The biggest issue we had was with our housing trailer. We had those first two options. We chose this office trailer, and these guys are, you can tell I've got a couple guys looking. You probably can't tell what they're looking at. Do a little zoom in. We had a catastrophic tongue failure. Fortunately, no one was hurt. The driver behind him radioed him, said, "Hey, your tongue is coming off. You need to get off the road as quickly as possible." Now, this could have been disastrous. These guys were on I-40 westbound, Middle Tennessee, heavily traveled route, a lot of traffic, but we were able to get this stopped. I would like to tell you that this was an isolated event, but remember, we had 4 teams moving that day. 2 of these teams had the same problem, two total. So we had a second team. They weren't this bad yet, but this team, when they had this problem, they stopped. They radioed the other 3 teams. Everybody pulled over, checked their trailer. We had two tongue failures. We attribute that to 2 things. Our build out, we added a lot of weight to the trailer that was not calculated. The second thing was, as we really inspected these, the design of these office trailers was to get these trailers to a location where they would sit for the rest of their life. They weren't designed to move as much as we were moving them. So it was, fortunately, both of these strike force teams, there was a nearby TDOT garage. They sent some folks from their garage, and they were able to implement a design and a repair on the roadside to get these guys to the exercise and back home safely. When everybody got home, first thing you did is go in there and beef up that tongue, right? So every region went to work on that. And this was 2011, 2012, no problems. 2013, we were having an exercise in the Clarksville area, Middle Tennessee. Region 2 had almost gotten to the base camp. They were 2 miles out, and they had a frame failure. You can see some stuff there that doesn't normally belong. They were able to do some rigging and get that down the road for 2 miles and get it into our base camp. We actually hired a local trailer company to send a couple of guys down, and they spent the better part of 2 days getting this to where we could actually get it back home. But what that did force us to do is really take a hard look at our design, and we knew we could not continue down this road. So we worked with Fleetco and Magnolia Trailers. Magnolia did a design for us to build a more robust trailer chassis. I'm not going to read all these specs, let you look at them just a second. The big thing is it's a 14-inch, 30-pound I-beam, and it's one-piece construction. Instead of, you saw that where that tongue failed, it was actually a welded-on piece. Now we have a one-piece construction. We've added an 8-inch channel outer rail. We upgraded our suspension, upgraded our axles. This is just a drawing. This is a very robust frame. Frames were completed. They sent them to Fleetco. Fleetco literally brought our trailers in, disconnected the box. It was an interesting process. They started sliding the old frame out, sliding the new frame in, and got all of our boxes transferred at a cost of, you remember the initial trailer only cost us $19,500. This cost us just shy of $37,000 a trailer. The long story here is, making it short, is if you decide to do any kind of strike force, these trailers are not the answer. We have an average of $93,000 into these, each trailer. The most expensive trailer to date is $151,000. This is a trailer we use for strike force. We do use these trailers in snow and ice operations. We put them in places where if we've got a big winter event coming, we can pull operators off the road and they can sleep here, not let them go home. If you let them go home, you don't get them back. You know that story. So we try to use them a little bit, but they don't get a lot of use, right? And that's a lot of money for something that doesn't get a lot of use. We considered what our options were. The reality is the frame and the tongue were not their only issues. Everything in the box is a wood frame. So when you're moving down the road, wood frames don't like flex. So we had a lot of water leaks around doors and windows. We've replaced wooden floors. We've pulled out insulation, had to replace it. We've replaced studs, floor plates, anything wood just about. And what we've discovered is really every 2 to 3 years, we have some kind of major repair to do to these. So we are not going to continue down this road. We've looked at 2 options for future housing. One option, actually, we found here in the great state of Florida, down in Tampa, Lifetime Sales LLC. They have been designing and building housing trailers for the carnival industry since 1971. And of course, you guys think carnival, they move, right? They move all the time. So it's a 12-inch I-beam. Everything above the frame is aluminum. They're easy to clean. These guys have they'll design anything you want. So we told them, hey, we want a trailer that will accommodate 12 people. And it needs to have a pintle hitch because everything we found on site on our website was not pintle hitch. So they've sent this design to us. It does sleep 12, and it's a Z design. So every person has their own entrance. If a gentleman's or a lady's coming in from this side, she'll have access to the bottom bunk, and there's a place to hang some clothes and some storage. But the way the wall is built, it is literally the Z design. So if she's sleeping on the bottom bunk, she can't see the top bunk. This guy on this side has access to the top bunk, but not the bottom bunk, so it's privacy. And that's always been an issue for us because most of the time we have men go to strike force, but we have some women who want to go. And then you saw our previous designs, it's a bunkhouse. So we had some women said, I'm still going. And they've done fine. But each of these rooms has an independent HVAC unit. We really like this trailer. In 2020, we got a quote, and of course, COVID hit and we didn't make any decisions. But in 2020, they quoted us $100,000 per trailer. Well, we're almost at that with what we've got. Probably we'll be over that by the time we can replace them. Current design, though, has a kitchen and a bathroom in it. So we have to figure out what we're going to do with that. This same company designed us a bathroom trailer. We'll have 4 bathrooms in one trailer, still using the Incentilet, so we still don't have black water, full shower, and a sink. So we really like this design. This one came in at only $83,000. What a buy. And then the second option we look at is the Connex. We know the military does this, right? So we're looking at these 20-foot Connex. This particular design, it'll be spray foam insulation. It's got the one we're looking at here, it's got a Mitsubishi HVAC split unit. It's completely done. It will not come with the bunk, so obviously we'll have to put our own bunks in. One window in it. It's on the door. These are about $25,000 a piece. So we'd have to have 2 of those per region. We're really, just because of cost, we're kind of leaning towards these. But here again, if you go this route, you have to put them on a trailer and haul them. So that means maybe 1 additional dump truck or 1 less piece of equipment. Decisions have to be made, right? To answer the kitchen issue, we actually have purchased 2 of these portable kitchen trailers. They're actually concession trailers. We've already have these in our inventory. We really like them. They have stove, oven, deep fryers. They're all propane. Everything else is electric. If they've got an ice maker in them, a refrigerator, a freezer, they're very functional. We've actually used these on a couple of exercises. We have not deployed these in an actual event. We've had, like I said, we've had, I think, 2 in-state events and the Louisiana event. So we've not used this in an actual event. We do use it in our exercise some. So these were the main issues that we dealt with. And that's just kind of a quick overview of what we've done with Strike Force. We'll tell you if you're interested in finding a little bit more information, you go to YouTube, and in the search bar, just type in TDOT Strike Force. We have 9 videos there. 4 of them are like the one on the bottom. This the story of TDOT Strike Force. There's 4 segments to that. I don't think any of them are, I think the longest one's 5 or 6 minutes. So I would recommend, if you're interested in this further, you can look at those videos. This is a work in progress. We have come miles from where we started, but we still have a lot of room for improvement. So with that, I'll take questions if you have any. I do need you to probably wait till Angel gets a microphone to you, because I probably won't hear you without the microphone.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.